today we are talking to another composer, Stello Doussis. Hello, Stello.
How are you doing?
Great. So, I actually found that your history is scattered over tons of homepages, so I thought it would be a good idea today to sit together and talk a bit about what you remember.
Sure. As I said earlier, up front, my memory is terrible, but I try to remember most of it, if that's even possible.
Perfect. So let's start with the obvious. How did you run into computers? What was your first touching point? How did it all start?
Okay, so I remember back in the 80s, I think we were on holiday somewhere, and at the place we were in Croatia at the time, or Yugoslavia, there was a bar that always played music, and it was just chart music. And I remember there was Paul Hardcastle 19, and I thought, oh wow! I was a kid. I would have been 9, 10 years old, and these electronic sounds they really grabbed me. So I thought, how is it done? I want something. I want a button to press to get these sounds. What do you do? So I got a Casio keyboard, like really a basic one. So I was happy for a while, but the sounds were very, very similar, and I kind of got quickly bored with it. I try even to learn how to read music, but I got quickly bored with it. It was too much hard work. I just wanted to play, didn't want to put the work in. I just wanted the music in my head, but how do you get it to do for you? I wanted to put it in somehow, didn't know how. I wanted to make music, but I didn't want to play it because it wouldn't be exact, wouldn't be on timing, and there was too many elements. How do you do the bass line at the same time with the drums? How many hands do you need to create this? So first things was the sounds. I was interested by electronic sounds, and my keyboard had an expansion port, right? I had no idea what it was. I saw all these wires coming out, and I thought, oh, what happens if I take a screwdriver and just go across? And circuit, I think today they call it circuit bending, right? so that's what and interestingly enough, it created funny sounds. I said, oh wow, that's interesting. So you turn it off, you turn it back on again, you go with a screwdriver along the circuit board, and suddenly you have interesting sounds. I said, oh wow, that was interesting. So it came really with the sound first. And then a neighbor of mine, he had with a Commodore 64 with tape, and I remember the first game was Ghetto Blaster. I don't know if you remember that on the Commodore 64. I mean, the sounds are really, really basic and simple. I mean, they're just basic waveform. There's no modulation or anything in these sounds, but it was enough to me, like, oh wow, how does that work? Where does it come from? We were just playing the game. In the game itself, you have to collect tapes, right? And once you got a tape, you can put it in your virtual Ghetto Blaster and play the music. So we would just get a tape from somewhere, and then the game you run around, collect a tape, put it in your Ghetto Blaster, and we just listen to the music, because we were just I was just fascinated with it, and my friend was like, yeah, whatever, let's play. I said, no, stay there, don't move. I just want to listen to the music. So And that's how it all started, because the sounds that came out of the Commodore 64 were kind of the electronic, the sounds that kind of interest me, and that's where it really started. And from then on, what was the next game I saw? It was probably I think that was before Ace 2. I think Warhawk from Rob Hubbard. It had these really pitchy sounds with delay in the beginning. It sounded like a synthesizer. It was very, everything was moving. There was vibrato. There was, pitch modulation. There was a waveform, a pulse wave modulation, and all that happening. And I was like, wow, how the hell does that work? So that's where it all started, and that's where I wanted to go. That's what I wanted to do, and that got my attention.
Interesting. Normally, for people, it starts first with the games, and for you, it started with the music first.
It started with the music. Saying that, once I saw these games, I was super fascinated. I also remember when holidays, like Germany didn't have really. So where I grew up, it was a small town. Germany didn't have really, arcade halls where you put a coin in and you can play. I think we had one in our local, Pommesbude. We had Phoenix, and that was as much arcade as you could get back in the day. But again, on holidays, there was suddenly we had there was what's it called, Jungle Hunt, and all these. And I always looked at the graphics and I listened to the sound because I was so fascinated with how that all worked. So so computer games definitely were part of that, but it started initially, I think, with the sound that grabbed me, and then seeing how the sound interacts with the game. That was just fascinating for me. Now, and how it works. I wanted to know the mechanics of it all.
The question is, if you had an arcade in your place, how much of the music would have you heard? Because the problem with the arcades is you have so many machines with different sounds trying to be louder than the other one. How would you have heard any bits of the music?
I would have, if it was like a jump and run, I would have stayed in the corner and not move. You laugh, but that's actually what I did. Back in the days, Parodius. It was an arcade game, and the sound engine had samples. It was like full on synth sound. I did exactly that. I try not to shoot any enemies, and in the arcade back in Germany, in the arcade hall, I had a tape recorder, and I recorded that on the tape while I was not trying to move, just to get the soundtrack. This was all before the internet. There was no. How do you get a soundtrack off an arcade machine back in the day? There was no way. There wasn't CDs. I didn't know anyone who just sold tapes of arcade music. How did you do that?
Wow.
Yeah, but the sounds always fascinated me first, and then obviously with the game mechanics, after.
Interesting. Yeah. And then your history started. I saw on CSDB with 86 in the demo scene, right?
No.
No? Okay.
No, the demo scene was just me and myself. Oh my God! See, this is actually a funny story. So I was a 11 or 12-year-old, and I needed a handle because I was doing, I can't remember. Anyway, I got into programming and
assembly, right? I guess assembly programming. Or did you do basic first?
Basic, of course. Yeah, basic first. I had to cry for 3 weeks to get actually a computer. After all of my friends had a computer, and then my keyboard that I had with the circuit bending that I did finally broke. So when I turned it off and back on again, it was all stuffed up. So
what a surprise!
Yeah, what a surprise! I'm actually surprised that it lasted that long. That was a really solid circuit bending device, and let me tell you that. So to get my computer, I had to cry for 3 weeks because my father said, how can you get a computer when you can't even handle a Casio keyboard? So yeah, I see his point. I see his point there, but the thing was with the keyboard, I was bored with it because I reached its limitations. With the Commodore, with the computer, the only limitation is really yourself. There's no way you would open it up to do something else that it doesn't. You would do it through programming. So completely did different things.
And nowadays, for the price of the keyboard, you can get a SID chip on eBay because the prices rose so far for the SID chip.
It's crazy. Actually, the emulations are pretty amazing. I have to say they're really good. But nothing beats the original SID, of course. But again, I got a C128. So when I used the filter and create any music using filter settings, and I was around my friends playing it on this Commodore 64, the filter was way deeper, and sometimes the voice completely disappeared because the filter on the Commodore 128 was way more open on my version of mine, on my revision of the SID that I had, than on the original Commodore 64. So sometimes I would listen to on the Commodore 64, and I thought, oh, that's not supposed to sound like that at all.
Maybe we should explain that to people. The problem with the 128 is it was released just on the edge when the Z64C was released, which used the newer SID.
Yes.
So only the very first batches of the 128 had the earlier SID model, and all the other older, newer 128 had the newer SID with the different filters and stuff.
Yeah,
that's the problem, basically.
I think it was the 8580 that was in mine. Yeah. What did the Commodore 128 have? Maybe a newer version of that.
Exactly. The 8580 was in the later versions of the 128, that's and the old SID was on the newer, the later. The older versions. The problem is the 128 was released when Commodore made the switch with the models of the C64. So they also switched what was used in the 128 along the way.
Yeah. So
we were unlucky. We were unlucky having this newer, bigger computer.
Yes. But before I actually had my Commodore 128, I spent a lot of time at my friends who had the original Commodore 64. So when I finally got my 128, it sounded different. But during the time when I did music, I never noticed that until I really compared. A couple of weeks later, I thought, no, listen to this. Oh, what's that? That sounds different. What's happening here? Every SID chip has its own character, its own vibe, so to say.
That's the other problem. Different revisions.
Yeah, but back to your original questions when you said when I started 86. So I was really 87. I can't remember. So I did really stupid basic programs. What I did, I needed a handle, right? So here I was, 11 years old. All the intros and demos, but back in the day that I saw were all written in English. So I thought, I can't write German. I have to write English as well. But, I think I was in sixth grade I really can't remember. So my English was quite limited, and I wanted my nickname to be the Ace. So it's like, in German it's das Ass, the card. So what I did was, which is spelled ASS in German. So I thought, I'm just going to take that and as my English handle, not knowing it means either donkey or ass. So it was kind of a mistake. But I didn't find that out till many years later, till I met older friends who said, Who's that ass? I said, what do you mean? I said, oh, that's me. And they all laughed their heads off and explained to me what it actually means in the English-speaking world. Not in the dictionary, because in the dictionary it didn't mention any of that. In the dictionary it just said donkey and I can't remember something else, but it didn't mention actually it's slang for ass. So that was one of the stupid handles. And what I did was, I don't know, it was really, I didn't distribute any of that. It was really just for myself. I think I uploaded some on c64.com many years after. I can't remember. I did trainers for Jungle Hunt, and it wasn't even a proper menu. It was really just a trainer menu. But I just did it really for myself. No one is seeing it really. And I did different stupid handles over the years. Don't ask me why. It was just, I guess that's what you do as an 11, 12-year-old.
Yeah, it says you used your handle Hotman for the cracking trainer menus.
God, yes. And you know what? That was based on Hotline. They were massive back then.
Oh, yes.
Hotline was a whole group, right? I was only one, so I thought, oh, Hotman. Oh Lord, Lord.
Not a very positive
No, not very
attitude in your names.
Again, and I really just used all that to myself. So I had discs of, where I put trainer menus before of games and train games. But, they didn't go anywhere. It was really for myself.
And it says in 89 you finally got your handle that you're in use still nowadays, Archon.
Archon, that's right. So when was that, later in the late, so I finished high school, and then I did a vocational training in the next big city. That's where I met a lot of people who were in the Amiga scene, and some people being in the group called Adapt. And, I showed them some of my music. I don't think I had an Amiga back then, but I showed them my Commodore 64 stuff. And somehow, I don't even know how it all happened. Somehow I got an Amiga at home, and I did some mods. And they said, okay, do you want to join? I said, yeah, sure. What you need to do? Well, let's first start with a handle. So do you remember the Commodore 64 game Archon Adapt?
Oh yes, I have a T-shirt, black and white. It's the only T-shirt
I got one too.
I got. That's the only T-shirt that's nerdy, but nobody knows it.
I thought the game was amazing, a different story, but so that's where it came from. The Archon Adapt. I thought it was just fitting to the whole Adapt scene, and yeah, that's why. I'm not releasing anything since then, really. It's just, people know me under that name.
Well, it says your last release was in 2006, a Hubber to Go tracker converter.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so when I started programming when I started to listen to the music and wanted to know how it was done, I started learning assembly and disassemble, and I looked at Rob Hubbard's player, and I thought, oh my God, when my whole mind just opened up. How do you even come up with programming a sequencer like that and doing all these crazy things with waveforms? So that's where it all came from. I just by disassembling his player, I learned a lot. Yeah, that's I think that's how it all started with the programming.
Nice, interesting. So the programming with assembler started because you had an interest in finding out what Rob Hubbard did with his music.
100%. I actually started back in basic days. There was all these it was called the C6 or the 64 magazine.
Yes.
And they had always data programs that you have to type into your computer and retype listings. That's right. So and always, some of them started with SUS 4069 and all these weird numbers. I had no idea what that meant, what those meant. And I remember I played. I had a real writer. It was some piece of software when you can write messages, and it would record how you type it on your keyboard. And this real writer I had 6 different Hubbard musics inbuilt, so you could choose which music to pick.
Oh,
anyway,
probably a demo noter or something.
Yeah, exactly. But it was called the real writer, and I remember quite well. So my Commodore, so I used the real writer just to write a message. So my Commodore 128 had a reset button. I don't think the C64 doesn't have a reset button. So I pressed reset, and just for the fun of it, I typed in a couple random sys commands, and this is like winning in lotto. The sys command I typed in suddenly created a sound, a noise. I was like, what's happening here? And I did it again, and the noise changed. So what I found was the V blank routine, to call every virtual blank, every vertical blank, to play, the next sequence and the next notes. So I wrote a little basic program where I called that sys and then back go to. I was like, oh my God, every time you call the sys command, it plays the next step. And then that's when I wanted to know, started to learn. So I went into the Commodore 128 mode, and with that you could see the memory of the C64. And I remember that sys. I wrote it even down, that sys command, and I thought, how do I know what's happening here? So I read up what sys means, and the 120 had an inbuilt disassembler monitor. So I read up. I had the book in front of me, and then it even had some conversion in it where you can. This is a decimal number. You need to convert it to hexadecimal. So somehow, I don't know how, I was able to disassemble that sys command and see the machine code of what it was doing, not understanding a bit of it, but slowly over time. Then that's what got my attention. But even before that, I had a friend who lived nearby me in my town. He started learning machine language. So we kind of back and forth stuff that we learned. He was way more advanced than me when we started, so that probably helped as well.
Wow.
Remembering this was all before the internet, so now you don't know something, you just find a YouTube video and someone explains it to you. Back in the day, you had a manual of this size. Anything you want to know, ask someone. Good luck finding out how it works. It was also the discovery as well. So the motivation for me was not only finding out how it works, but it's almost like a bit of treasure hunting, like not knowing and then trying to find out how things work. That was definitely part of the thrill as well.
And that was in the late 90s, or when was
that was probably by 80. Oh no, this was 88, probably 88, 87. So I think I got the Commodore on maybe late 86, and I think by late 87 I already had understanding of assembly, not like full on, but just enough kind of to get by.
But you must have had a reason to stick with the old machines if you still release a tool in 206, because
yeah, for sure.
Because I remember at that time the retro craze started in 2010, and before that people were like, it's trash, get a new machine. It's not worth spending time doing anything with it.
Right.
I was always called the trash collector,
No. Yeah. Look, look, I have a bloody tattoo. Look at this. Like, can you see it? It says D400.
Yes. Yeah.
When I'm old and senile, right, and I don't know anyone's name, you can ask me about the SID registers, and I can tell you every bit of it. That's how memorable the whole SID and the sound is to me. And it's of course it's nostalgia. It has not really much any commercial or money value. But for that at that time it has so much character. You hear the C64 sound a mile away. And you either love it or hate it. It's I will love it as long as I live. Even later when I did mods on Amiga, and chip tunes on Amiga. At some point when I started early on Amiga, I called it L'Amiga, because I thought, so I mean, superior sound wise and graphic wise and everything was way superior than the Commodore 64. But I was like, no, the Commodore 64 is so deep in my heart, nothing can come close.
Well, the Polar sound chip doesn't have filters.
No, exactly. Yeah. It's cold hard digital, and which is not bad either. It has its charm as well. And it depends on what you do with it. But I never did programming on Amiga. I just never got there, and I never had that much interest, to be honest.
And now you mentioned the word commercially. I actually found you because in a YouTube video of best Gameboy music, the game Das Geheimnis der Happy Hippo Insel was mentioned. And this is how I found you.
Oh, right. I still have that behind me, my Game Boy, and the copy. I got one free copy when I did it, and then I bought one myself in my local shop.
and I wonder why do you use such a fancy music in a Kinder Surprise game?
I can tell you why, because Game Boy music, then everything sounded crap to me. I mean, look, it's just personal. So I think I have to wind back a bit. So a friend that over the years that I met in the Amiga scene through a friend, Andreas Scholl, who was also the founder of Kritzelkratz 3000, the company that released the game, created the game. He knew that I was doing Commodore 64 music, and when they needed someone for Happy Hippo, he asked me if I wanted to do something with it. Prior to that, they had a game which was like Pokemon-like, but with flowers, called Floracy. And he asked me if it had a little intro animation explaining the whole Floracy universe, and there's this evil plant and blah blah blah. And he asked me if I can, make the music for the Floracy game that was just in beta phase, because they wanted to find a publisher for the game. And I said, yeah, sure, why not? What music system do I use? Not knowing anything about the Game Boy hardware. And he said, oh, there's this thing called, I think, Music Box it was. And, Music Box was like a tracker, and you could directly manipulate on and create the music on the Game Boy itself. So I started doing that, and then I noticed this is painful. I will not create a whole soundtrack using, the up, down, and A and B buttons, and that's all it was. All you could use to create a whole soundtrack. So I looked at the save file it created, and I thought, it was a really simple format. So what I thought, okay, I create the music in what was it, XM fast tracker back then, and then I write a converter to convert it back to the format that way. So if you've seen Floracy the game, the whole intro it's almost like a video, but it's all obviously programmed. It's a whole intro animation explaining all the characters. There's like a character coming up and then moves away. There's a sentence coming up, and it's also like a whole title intro sequence. What I did was I looked at the sequence. So I had to make music that fits to that. So I looked at the Game Boy, press start on the Game Boy, and start simultaneously on my XM on my on the fast tracker, trying to simulate that matches up. What you see is the sound that you get, which took me, oh my god, forever, because it's 60 seconds, and every time you made a change, you had to start from the beginning to watch the whole intro from the beginning and to sync up with the music. If you watch it now, it still fits quite well. It works. And then so I created a converter to use Music Box. But again, the sound engine was so basic. All Music Box could really do was pick a waveform, pick ADSR, play note. There was no vibrato. There was no pulse wave modulation. The Game Boy only had like 3 pulse waveforms, like 0, 1, 2, 3. That's it for the first 2 voices, and the third voice had I think 16 bytes samples, and then the fourth voice was only noise. So I thought, oh, you could do much more than just what everyone does in Game Boy. Because I mean, you played any Game Boy game and they all sounded the same. And I thought, well, for the Florissy project, I think it fit the purpose. But even then, I did some trickery where I quickly changed notes and the waveform. So it had kind of a bit of pulse wave modulation by changing quickly to waveforms. And also the vibrato that I used was it didn't have vibrato like properly once. So the way I did it was if I had a C, I would go from a C to a C sharp, C, B. So I would play 3 notes quickly, and in sequence to create a vibrato emulation with Music Box. Again, Music Box didn't sound like Music Box once I played my sound through it with in high speed as well. And then later on, so that Florissy demo was finished, had music. They tried to find a publisher. I think on the way to try to find a publisher, they got approached to do Happy Hippo. So again, he asked me, would you like to do the music for Happy Hippo? I said, okay, if I do, please don't give me Music Box again.
Okay. Don't repeat the same mistake.
Yeah. So what other options are there? And there was, what's it called? I think it came from Factor 5. Was a music system. Anyway, the license fees for that system were horrendous. I think it was 10,000 marks or something, quite high. But not only that, the sound it created was again very basic, and I thought, that can't be. So what happened? So I was asked to do the music, and a friend of mine that I knew from the Amiga scene, who lived also nearby. So the company was in Würzburg. I was in Düsseldorf at the time, and a friend who was seconded to do the coding for it lived in Osnabrück, Daniel Otis. And so he was hired to do the programming. I was hired to do the music. And he said, well, what about we create a game company? I said, yeah, sure. So because he did music as well. So we did Freak Entertainment, like frequency, but just stops at freak. So our goal,
clever.
Yeah. So our goal was, that we get projects or assist to projects or freelancing or whatever happens. And we had a website. We had tons of music on, even I had synths at the time as well. I had proper synth music with orchestral stuff and what have you. Just showing what we can do, what we can offer. So we built the free company, but in the meantime, we had to work on Happy Hippo. So we applied to become an official Nintendo licensed developer. And from the time I got the job and my friend got the job, we had 3 months to deliver. So I got Nintendo docs for the hardware. And again, I'm not the smartest cookie on this planet, so I need to take my time to really understand and read twice, so I can understand. So there was I think over 3 pages just talking about the Game Boy hardware, the music hardware. I had to create a cheat sheet so everything fits on one page, and what it can do and what it can't do. So I started to draft the first, and I didn't know anything about Z80 assembly as well, because it's a it's not Z80, it's a Z80 clone.
Despite it was in the 128 for CPM.
Yes, which I never utilized. Yes, that's yeah. Which I had to see the Commodore 128 I got. I only got a standard monitor. I wasn't able to use the 80 column mode. So and using the Z80, I didn't even know it existed till many, many years after. So I had to learn Z80 assembly, which was quite it's fairly straightforward. Coming from the Commodore 64, the 6510 assembly was you could relate to the Gameboy Z80 assembly. So and the dev kit we used was just free off the internet as well. So I drafted the first prototype, and then I created the music in XM in Fast Tracker, and created. But basically, everything in the player. When I created the player, everything I wanted was I don't want to sound like any other Game Boy game. I wanted the full shebang. I wanted vibrato. I wanted the effect that Rob Hubbard used. What is it called? Not Skyfall. He used it in One Man and His Droid. I wanted to use pulse wave modulation. I wanted all these things to have the whole shebang. I basically wrote every frame. Every frame I write all hardware registers. So. Which it was quite intense of writing all hardware registers every frame. So I think it used probably a bit more CPU time, which didn't have any impact on the game itself. So everything was fine. So the player was all the things I couldn't do because I didn't find them. All the existing music systems couldn't do what I wanted them to do when it's capable of doing it. And that's how it started. And then I think later on, one of the product managers, when he played the game, he listened to the music and said, "Wow, that's the first time I actually can listen to Game Boy music. Most of the time I have to turn it off because it's so annoying." So I thought, that works for me. But
the thing is, on Reddit there is even a discussion about it, saying every song on this soundtrack is perfect.
Oh wow!
So even to this day, people are saying
God,
it's perfect.
Yeah, wow, that's really nice to hear. Again, it wouldn't have happened without my masters. Rob Hubbard, I don't know, Ben Daglish. I mean, all of them. For example, Chris Butler, who did Ghosts and Goblins on the vibrato that he used was very strong. But I love that stuff. It just sounds like. It just sounds like Sid, and it sounds alive. It sounds, it's just a dynamic. I hate nothing more than static plain sound. If the composing is nice, go for it. But very very often, if the composing is a bit boring and you have these plain sounds, it just I just get bored with it quickly.
It's interesting that you mention the music of Game Boy games usually being terrible, because there are some games like Super Mario Land that was always told to be, typical or classical music where you always can return to, even though it was just blips and plops, but people love those music.
Exactly. But I didn't want to go there because that was done. That was done. If I wanted to go there, I could have used any of the other sound systems and saved myself a lot of time and energy and sound like in any of these games. Saying that there's so many other games that had amazing sound effects as well. Alexei Eben, he did Project 5 on Game Boy. That was just mind blowing. I mean, I think I never heard anything like it before and after, I think. Pokemon, for example, was cute. Did I like the sounds? The composing is awesome. I mean, the composing is brilliant, but the sounds themselves are like, come on, just do a little bit different. I mean, it's Pokemon gets away because the composing is brilliant by itself.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to hear about the gaming business on Game Boys, because normally the people I talk to, they never touch the Game Boy, So
yeah, that's true.
It's not like you make a jump from the C64 to Amiga and then Game Boy. That's not something.
I think it just happened because Game Boy came out. When was that? 1998 or 1999? So the hardware was quite similar to back old school days. And if you have experience with that, then sure, bring it along.
But you worked on Game Boy Color, basically.
Game Boy Color, yes. Yeah, Game Boy Color. We also got the license for Game Boy Advance. But the new economy crash in 2001, when that happened, I mean, the whole game scene was upside down. I don't know if you remember. Every game, a flight simulator where you can fly a plane into a building was, oh my god, there was a Microsoft flight simulator that copped it bad. They had to rewrite it. They have to take it off the shelves for that reason. Any game that was violence or had some kind of violence was under review. So just game development from 2001 was just going downhill.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's when it really stopped for us as well, sadly. Because we did Otifanten after that as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it was a right to left scroller. You just the baby elephant and you run over obstacles all the time. And I read somewhere, I think it was on YouTube, where someone said, "Oh, the music doesn't fit at all. It doesn't sound like the Otifanten." Well, if the Otifant runs from left to right, they're trying to escape a bee, then you wouldn't hear like tralala music. It's confronting. You can die any moment. So, and that's the vibe I want to give. It's like constantly. That's intense. You're in an intense situation. Play the intense game because it just fit. So all the I think it had 6 levels. All the in-game music is quite intense and fast, and just to keep that vibe up.
And how was it for you to make the jump from making music for your own enjoyment and then working commercially? That must have been quite a difference, no?
No. It wasn't because to me it was. Doing the same thing but for money. Saying that, the really terrible things were having roadblocks. So you start on a music and then, oh my god, what am I going to do from here? So I really took moments where I tried to structure my day if I felt like I have a roadblock of the day before. I went to the pool in the morning, had to swim. I just completely tried to forget about it and, try hum different things that pop in my head, because I still can't play really up to now, and any keyboard or musical instrument. I have a master keyboard right in front of me. You probably can't see it. But I really just use it to play really basic chords. There's always editing for me after. So, and then live music for me, maybe drums. I never tried it. Yeah, I need a sequencer.
Interesting.
Other than that, to me, it was really a fun project.
So what you describe is more like what people know at writer blockage. Where you don't know what to write next in your book.
Exactly. I had that couple of times. Throughout all the projects, I eventually had writer's block here and there.
But for music,
in music, yeah. But you just try different things, or you try different things. Listen to it backwards, pitch it up, pitch it down. Listen to completely other genres, or there's ways. That's when it actually becomes work, and that's where you think, oh God, I have to deliver. There's a tight deadline. You have to bring a result. That's when it becomes work. But once you start and you get back into it, you have to keep going, and eventually you get there. Yeah, I think you have to stick to it. Never give up, never surrender.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is with this hardware back then, people were always trying to make things that were told to be impossible.
Yeah, and that was a challenge. I mean, to me, that was also the fun of it. I'm looking at Commodore 64 demos now, and my mind is completely blown. I'm like, how the hell do you do that? They look like Nintendo Super NES demos. So something. How do you get like all these sprites on the screen, or these crazy effects? And like, I have no idea how that works. And that's amazing. It's still people still do that these days.
And what's your opinion about composers? I mean, there were some composers that mostly worked on converting music, but that is not something you did. You only worked on projects creating your own new bits.
Yeah. So I also worked on a Western game called Far West. So I had to do some research, and before I actually got the project, I had to submit a demo on, what does wild Western music sound like? And, there's this Ennio Morricone. He's probably the one who created that genre, and then John Williams. I think he did a couple of Western themes as well. So. There's only a couple of people you can pick who created that genre. So I had to listen for that for the Western game on quite a few. I bought a best of Western Music CD. I listened to lots of Ennio Morricone music, saying that I never copied anything. I just listened to the instrumentation they used, just to get the vibe across. But I wouldn't have much really interest to make a 1-to-1 copy. That's it's interesting, but it's probably not something that would really interesting me. Saying that, I think I'd be probably good at that, because even now when I hear music, I could hear a Commodore 64 version in my head, how that would translate. If I had more time, I probably would do it, but I rather prefer to do something unique than a copy.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that's actually the thing. I mean, if you don't have to convert the game, you have total creative freedom. That's good.
Yeah.
But then of course we know the typical Rob Hubbard story where he was supposed to convert Commando from the arcade to the C64, and he decided to throw it all and make his own version of
what brilliant choice that was. But saying that, you can still hear some similarities. It's just this brilliant way of taking something here and putting it there. For example, what's the other one? One Man and His Droid. I don't know if you know the TV show. It was popular in the 80s or 70s. Police Woman. So yeah, it's called Police Woman, and the title music of Police Woman is actually One Man and His Droid. The melody, but he translated. It's not 100%, but enough to say that's where the inspiration came from. I mean, Rob Hubbard, he was a genius in taking something from here, and even Warhawk elements in Warhawk were taken from Space Odyssey, I think 2001, which was done in the 60s or 70s. It's genius how he's done that. And I think as long as people do that, in a new way. I think that's okay. That's where the creative bits come in.
But I think also that game music and retro music changed a bit. I mean, you probably heard about it. There was some 15 years ago. There was even a lawsuit because somebody stealing music from a C64 track without crediting,
yes.
and like wow.
Timbaland, and he actually contacted me and telling me about that. And I think Stella, what's the name? Stella. He sent me an email telling me about that. And Timbaland. I mean, stars like producers like Timbaland. I mean, come on. How hard is it just to clear that sample? I mean, it was just blatantly stealing without even acknowledging. It wasn't even. It wasn't redoing the bits. It was literally sampling one-on-one. That's, come on, clear the sample. If you release it on that big scale internationally, then yeah, I thought I that wasn't cool.
The last bit I found of you was actually a Remix 64 release from 2014, Summer of '86. That is a remix.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have actually so many Commodore 64 remixes, like in proper music arrangements that whenever I get time to release, I might do that. Again, I was in my car driving on my iPhone. I have it's not Winamp, it plays C64 and SID files. Anyway, I play sometimes
on your iPhone.
Yeah,
you probably mean Modizer.
Modizer, that's it.
Modizer from Johan, a French programmer. Yeah.
Yes.
That was the first app I really bought for money on the iPhone. I was like, yeah, that's perfect. That's a perfect application.
It is. So I was driving back from work, back home. It was a sunny day, and I downloaded. I think I downloaded the whole CSDB. The
high voltage SID collection.
Yeah, exactly. HS whatever. HSVC. Yeah, HSVC. There you go. There we go. And up came that song, which I used in my trainer menu I made for Turrican 2, which again I never released. It was just for myself. Because it was such a happy song, and I really liked the sounds of it. So I was driving in the car, listening to that, and I was like, oh my god! And then suddenly heard a whole arrangement in my head of, if that was an 80s song, that's probably what it would sound like. And it's on my SoundCloud as well. And the original composer, he contacted me as well, saying, "Oh, thanks for picking my song. It brought back so many memories." And that's nice to hear. But
which was Xane, by the way.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. It was just a fun little track. But there's so many. Oh my god, they should be redone.
But hey, you got a rating of 91. That's one of the best ratings.
Wow.
So
yeah,
you know your job, obviously.
Look, again, I really did. You never know. You just never know if people like it or. I mean, it's not dubstep. It's not it's not anything. It's not a fancy genre. It's sounds 80s. The mix is not the best, but I guess if I can jiggle to it, then I hope someone else can.
It's interesting. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. As a creative person, you probably are never satisfied with your own work and still think I could have done it better in this piece and that piece and that way. And
I did a mod in 1994 called 64 on the Amiga. So what happened in our group Adept, we released a cruncher. It's called Flash Speed Cruncher, I think was called, and they did an animation and an intro, and they needed music for it. And because I had tons of mods never finished. Our swapper, he had a modem and BBS. They were literally waiting to get the music at night. He came to my place, and my bedroom was literally a bed, then a small pathway to get outside the bed, and in front of the bed was my computer. So I was sitting right in front of my computer. If you want to go past, I had to get up, move the chain so someone else can walk past. So he came all the way from Osnabrück. He was sitting on my bed reading my Donald Duck comics that I had everywhere. And he said, I'm not going to leave here till you finish a music for tonight. I said, oh, really? So, no pressure or anything. So, but yeah, I had a sampler as well on the Amiga, and I created all these sounds on the Commodore 64, sampled that, and oh my god! And then nothing was instant. The cruncher was released with the music, and for days, so weeks after, suddenly I got mail, I got phone calls, I got, I don't know, so many people from the scene contacted me saying, what did you do to the bass line? That sounds really amazing. What you did, I was just mind blown, because I really just had to put it together. Mind you, but I have to say, before I started, I had already started that song. I had it like maybe 40%, but the rest I had to finish while my friend was waiting and insisting, I'm not going to leave here till you finish. So yeah, working under pressure can do some interesting results as well.
Wow. So, are there any plans to go on with the retro business, or did you leave it altogether?
Oh, I kind of left it. I mean, I'm observing. I watched a lot of YouTube. The last thing I saw was the Ghosts and Goblins remake with extended levels on the Commodore 64. I was like, oh boy, see, that's so cool. And I want to get so Ghosts and Goblins was one of my favorite games, probably.
Despite it was one of the hardest.
Bloody tell me about it. Bloody. Here I was as a 12-year-old. I think I spent the whole Saturday from 1 o'clock till 11 o'clock to finish the game. And I somehow did it, but oh my god, I spent so much time on that. And that as a kid, you have the energy to do that, and it's all exciting. And the music was just amazing. I still love it to this day. That's why we're very often in my intro, for Wave Rock, for example, the sit that I did in the beginning. It's supposed to be an homage on Ghosts and Goblins. Because I used triangle waveforms and these ghostly sounds, because that's what I just like. And in the 64, it has a similar intro, whereas again I used triangle waveforms, ghostly sound. That's all because of Ghosts and Goblins, because I love it so much. And then that's a great thing if you don't if you're not under commercial influence, or to have to release something very, very specific. If you have creative freedom and you just do it for fun, you can do whatever, and then that's a nice part.
So I hope this interview will motivate you to release your unreleased stuff. As you said earlier, you have so much unreleased stuff.
Yes, tons. I mean, I even got a friend of mine sending my old Commodore 64 discs here to Australia. But I looked at some of this stuff and I thought, oh my god, no, take
no.
It's terrible. It's terrible. It's really bad. It's all the early stages where you think, oh my god, what's that? I mean, there's still stuff on SIDs that I released. Oh my god, they're crap. Not finished. Some of the ideas are good, but the tracks aren't finished. maybe one day, but it takes so much time to finish any old stuff. If I would go back to any of the music I did in the 80s and then trying to finish or update it or make it somehow listenable.
Chris Hülsbeck did that a couple of years ago.
Did he? Oh wow! But I think he's more talented. Yeah, I don't know. It just takes too much time. I probably would be like, I better start something new, or take an idea and take the idea and start with that. Start a new song. I might do that one day. I have a lot of. I got the mini C64, and what's the big one? It's right here. The C64. I got that, but I'm a little disappointed with it. For whatever reason, I thought it's going to be. I don't know why I thought that it's going to be either FPGA or the real deal, the real analog hardware. I have no idea why I thought that.
Nah, they use an emulator.
I know. And the thing, when I hooked it onto my TV and I played, I think Cybernoid, whenever I pressed the button, I could feel the delay. I could feel and see the delay. And that was a really downer for me. I mean, I can hook up my PC and play, anything on Vice.
Well, it's not the DTV. The DTV was FPGA based.
Oh yeah, I don't have that one. Yeah, right. Okay, so that'd be probably better to play then.
Probably, or getting a real one. I mean, Australia still has a big retro scene. So.
Yeah, I don't really know. I have one. I bought one ages ago, but the character set every time I connect it, it's a bit funny, and I don't think it's fully working. But yeah, I might get a new one.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Now I give you ideas what to do.
Yeah. No.
But there is one thing we didn't talk about, and it's actually your last FM profile says you also worked on J2ME devices for music.
Oh God, yes, there's heaps actually.
The pre-smartphone era.
Pre-smartphone. Yeah. So back then, with another friend, we had Norman Hartman. We had a game company called EEMO, EEMO. I actually can't tell you what it stood for. I did all the graphics for the games, and we did the official conversion for Bomb Check of Elite Systems. I think Elite Systems still holds the license for Bomb Check.
Nice.
Yeah, we did a lot of conversions, and we did a lot of original games. I did all the graphics for all these games.
So you learn to code, you can do graphics, you do music mainly, so you can do everything basically.
I'm actually more these days. I'm a senior graphic designer, so I think in my lifetime career I made more money with my living, my profession is graphic design than music. So yeah, I do a bit of everything. I mean, I've released a game on iOS. I did the music, I did the coding, I did the graphics, I did all the levels.
Really? Is it still available in the store?
Yeah.
What game is it?
Hexabix.
Hexabix.
It's like a puzzle. It's like a puzzle game. So it's based on hexagons. So they're overlapping hexagons, and you need to fill the hexagons back into their color. So
Hexabix with SCS. Ah, okay.
Yeah. That's it. And it did the animation for the the intro video, the all that.
Nice. And the company is called Spaß mit Hexagon. It says.
No, that's just the subtitles. The company's me.
Yeah, here I see. If I click on it, it's changing and then showing your name. Okay.
Yeah,
Understood it. Okay.
Yeah, there's no. That's just me having a bit of fun. There's no big publisher. And I might do an Android version, but who knows?
I mean, it's actually good because many games that I bought when I got my first iPhone, the 3G, stopped working because nobody bothered updating it when Apple switched to 64 bits.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know.
They all stopped working.
Some of my favorite games disappeared, which I'm really not happy about.
So it's glad to see that you have a game that actually still works.
Yeah, well, it was only released recently, so it is 64. It's only released June or something. Thanks to COVID, probably that's always a good and bad side. That's probably the only good side. What do you do if you have that much time? So you write an iPhone game.
So anyway, I interrupted you there. So you wanted to tell about your times on making games on those old phones. What was it like? I mean, it must have been a throwback because they were so limited.
Exactly. Yeah. So I did none of the programming. This was all done by Norman, and that was all Java based. Most of the devices were just monochrome, black and white. Pixel art. You grew up with the Commodore 64. Just was easy to do. The probably difference was, especially with the monochrome devices, you only had black and white. So you either had to draw an outline on the character or had really white solids. I had different challenges just to get the visuals across. What was a lot of fun was the devices themselves were very slow. You press a button to jump, and a second later it eventually jumps. So it was clunky, but there was a market there. We made a bit of money during that time, but it didn't last long. I think it went for a year, if that. And then once it started to take really off, it was just flooded with games, and of course piracy. There was no copy protection. There was a 30 kilobyte JTME file. I think later they increased to 64 and then 192. Luckily, we got some deals. Say for example, for the German Telekom, they got us to create a winter game kind of thing, and I created a snowman with doing different things, and we have different categories. On
the steps of Epix.
No. It wasn't called Winter Games, but it was if anything inspired.
Okay.
But it didn't look anything like it, and the main character throughout all the categories was a snowman, which we called Senior Frosty. And Senior Frosty was also later the character of another game, which had a game was on its own. So there was Senior Frosty Winter Games and Senior Frosty. Completely two different games. But we kept the character, and the Winter Game one was a color one, and Senior Frosty was only monochrome, black and white. I tried to find YouTube videos or anything, but I can't find anything. It's almost like it completely disappeared.
Wow! And you got no copies of your work from that era?
Yeah, I have the graphics, and I use the program I used to pixel was called Promotion. I still have all these files. I think the final Java, but I tried to find an emulator as well that works these days, but I couldn't find anything either. I'm sure there is somewhere an emulator that works, but yeah. I had the Samsung S51, which was, I think, the first enabled Java phone. So that was my device to test and see what it looks like.
Wow.
Back then, that was a pretty amazing device, and you could put in a memory card, and I think I had 16 megabyte to put like 4 MP3 files on it, to listen to some music. And you walk around the street with MP3 files. That was pretty cool.
Wow, wow. What year was that? 2001 or was it
Oh,
later? Probably around the early.
I think it was 1997 or 1998. I
Okay.
mean, the device was quite expensive.
Ah.
The first, Java-enabled phone.
Okay, sure. The first one must be earlier. Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the one that I had there is the Siemens. I think it was S51. I'm pretty sure. If it wasn't the first, it was one of the first. And back then, nothing really existed. I think there was on the Nokia one, the Worm. Is it called the Worm? Where you just go up and collect the balls and some really silly games, but there was nothing much around. So I think we were at the right time when we started, but as I said, it died very, very quickly out.
Well, I mean, the problem is you had services like Jamba, which was you would say somehow not really very how to say nice company trying to sneak in subscriptions.
Yeah,
and I think that destroyed the market.
Yeah, there was a couple of them. Luckily, all our games we developed were in contract for someone. For example, we had one game. It went to the Spanish telecom. It was exclusively for the Spanish market. Yeah, I really can't remember the name, but Norman was he was really out there. He put himself out to meet new clients and customers, and luckily we got some jobs through that, and there was demand there as well.
I mean, the only thing I remember from that time was Crazy Frog.
Oh my God! I think by the time Crazy Frog went off, this is when Yamba probably became the biggest, and that's when it died out for us. I think we stopped doing it when one of our titles had only 1 or 2 downloads a month. That's when we said, look, it's done.
Okay. And then you stopped there, or you went on with some other platform?
No, so basically everything after 2001, after the new economy crash, just died out, and I had a job opportunity, and I moved to Australia. I worked in advertising, did commercials, green screen, and special effects, color grading, and everything related. Lasted for a couple of years. Then I left there with the stomach ulcer. The pressure was bit too full on. Advertising is very, very fast paced. A client comes in today, they want it on air. Next day you have basically just a couple hours. Come up with concepts. Come up with the whole shebang. I mean, it literally, really, we had a couple of clients like that. So I left there after a couple of years and did something completely different. I now work still in health and health related sector. And it's actually quite nice to see, that your work has an impact on their life. And it's meaningful. Games are fun, but they have their lifetime. People play. After a year, it's done. But improving someone else's health, stays for life, and it's actually a quite nice thing.
And you are working on the graphic design part, or what is your job there?
So I'm a senior graphic designer. I'm looking mostly after the branding of our company, but I have my hands on everything from video to social media to animation to forms to annual reports to pretty much everything that needs printing, displaying in any shape or form.
And now that the video game industry is so big, did you ever consider returning to it?
Not really. I mean, if the opportunity arises, I would have to think about it. But it's. I think back in the day, you had much more creative freedom. These days, it's so structured, and I don't know. I guess if the circumstances is right, but back in the day, you could do anything, anything creative, and it was fine. I think nowadays with being too structured, I'm not sure if I would enjoy it. Saying that, I don't know. I mean, what I do now is very structured, and it's all right.
But still, there are some surprises. I mean, look at the successful game Sam's Journey on the C64. That was a commercial success. It was even at Heise mentioned in an article and stuff. So that was, that was quite big.
Wow, I mean, good on them. I'm really surprised to hear that. I saw videos on YouTube. To me, it looks like an SNES game. I never had a Super Nintendo, but just the action that's on the screen and the way it looks is just amazing. And
then you have like a couple of years ago, Farming Simulator was actually released on the C64, and in a exceptional anniversary kind of edition, and they announced it on April 1st, so everybody thought it was a joke, and they sold 30,000 copies.
What? On the Commodore 64?
Yeah, well, they released it on cartridge for the press, and on CD with a D64 file for the stores.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's amazing. Quite off. So there are still exceptional successes in the retro field.
Well, yeah, and that's really amazing. It's really cool to hear. I saw there's a new console release, an Analog 1. That's an FPGA emulator, and it does Gameboy, and I think it has its own system, and it comes with a sound system as well. And I'm just amazed on what's happening out there. The whole retro thing is taking off, and I really never understood. I mean, on iPhone and all the touch screen devices, there's nothing worse than playing, say, a shooter game on touch screen. It's a physical experience playing a shooter game. You need the button. I mean, the Commodore 64 joystick, the buttons, the button, you press it, it happens. On the display, what do you do? There's no reaction there.
Interesting that you mentioned it. Just yesterday, I was playing with somebody from the Philippines, and he was like, "Hey, get Call of Duty on the mobile. Why don't you do mobile games?" I'm well, okay,
I couldn't anything worse.
So like, I totally understand that even something people nowadays have no problem playing with the touchscreen, but I was like, oh man, I'm too old for this,
No, I couldn't do that either. I'm completely with you on that one. Especially any game that's fast paced. No, I need buttons. I need controls. And I think this generation that grew up with smartphones and touch displays, I think that's maybe the new thing for them. Oh, there's a button you can press that does the action with. So I think for them it's a new experience.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, there is Gamescom, and every year we have a booth there with our disc magazine on the C64, and people are mostly holding the Competition Pro wrong.
Oh no! Oh wow!
with the buttons on the bottom.
Oh, wow. Oh my god! Oh wow! There you go. I'm actually not surprised, but it's I believe that.
So they made a sticker, ich halte das Joystick richtig rum.
Oh Lord.
So they had to make a picture for the youngsters to show them how to hold a joystick correctly.
Right. Oh, Jesus. There you go.
So it's of course. I mean, if you never had a joystick in your hand in your life, how could you possibly know that the buttons are always on the top? You know.
Well, yeah. I guess when we grow up, everything was kind of big. I mean, even like big and clunky. It was new technology, and I think with technology in general, it's just a piece of hardware. But what people do with it, that's when it gets exciting.
This is that big and clunky. I remember the Game Boy, the first Game Boy, or even the Game Boy Color, and you try to get jeans where the pockets are big enough so you can actually carry it.
Yeah.
What a kind of a problem.
I tried to play Wario Land on my Game Boy Color, and the display is so it's not backlit. It's just terrible. So you have the light on, and you try to hold it so you can just see it without the glare on the screen. Like, how did I even bother picking it up and play anything with it? Because there's a glare always on the screen somewhere.
I know.
But it's you didn't question it kind of back then, because that's what it was. You just go with it. Same now. The clicking of the Competition Pro joystick, it's bloody annoying. You want to listen to the game and the music and sound effects, and you hear the click in the background constantly. You move the joy around like crazy, trying to escape. And sometimes the noise of the joystick is louder than the game.
Well, micro switches. There you go.
Yeah. But back no one cared back then, because that's what it was.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in the end result, you could imagine yourself participating in a retro gaming project at some point.
As my work is quite demanding. So after work, when I finish work, the last thing I want is pressure or have another deadline.
I mean, you probably saw Thimbleweed Park, from 2017, where Thimbleweed Park, which is coined on Maniac Mansion and Zack McCracken, those adventure games.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it?
No.
So Ron Gilbert, David Fox, and all those people from Lucasfilm Games, they worked on a new game. They made a Kickstarter, and it was amazingly successful.
Wow. And on what machine does it run? Is it like everything?
Well, PC, Switch, all the new gen, of course.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I mean, yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
So thanks to crowdfunding, you can do anything if you get enough people putting money into it.
Yeah. Oh, if I wouldn't say no. I would look at what's possible and what's expected. Sure. I mean, I would actually do. My heart really belongs to the Commodore 64, because I just love the machine. I love the sound, but I'm not stuck to that and say I wouldn't touch anything else.
That's interesting point, by the way. When I talk to pioneers a lot, I figured there are two types of people that worked in the 80s. There is one type that said like Rob Hubbard, I'm making for a Kickstarter project new music. He totally went into a sampler and dug into it again to make original music, because they offered to him to get help from them other people coding for him, and was like, no, I want to do it myself. I want to do it properly. And then there are people like David Fox that said like, no, I don't want to look at a sampler anymore at all. I'm done with that. I don't want to go back.
Yeah, I have a bit of that. So, for example, would I touch again Game Boy Color coding? Probably not, because I remember it was quite painful, and it felt like work at some point just to get there where you are. I think it also depends. For example, the Commodore 64. Would I touch assembly? Yes, I would, because on a side project I had with my friend Daniel, we started doing a music system. Maybe we're going to finish it one day. But I started writing, again, my dream player on the Commodore 64. which has all the features that I ever wanted that no other system has. Like really, like really nice vibrato. I have a sine table in there because I think it just sounds nicer. I can do crazy modulation things. Takes more timing. It's probably bigger. The player is, the driver is itself bigger, but it's the sound that what I'm after, and if it means more cycles, then so be it. So I do stuff now and then. Have I finished them? No. do I maybe finish them now and then? Yeah, maybe.
You are still young enough. You still have plenty of time.
Yeah. But so sometimes I don't do anything for months, and then it suddenly bursts out where I do. Suddenly new music or graphics. I do photography as well. I do pretty much everything that comes in mind. But outside work, I try not to put anything with deadlines, which is also a bad thing, because without deadlines you don't get anything done. That's the problem. So a push sometimes is not too bad. But I try to keep anything outside work just for fun. So it shouldn't feel like more pressure.
Well, I mean, you have companies in the modern world that work like that, and suddenly a Duke Nukem game needs 26 years, and the company almost went bankrupt on the way because they didn't make enough money. So
yeah, that's
the downside of it. So.
Yeah, we had this was back in the 90s. We went. I don't know if you know the Venlo copy parties in the Netherlands and in Holland. We went there because we tried to find a publisher for Plis for the game, which took I think 3 years in the making. I did the music 3 years before it got published, but we found a publisher who asked us if we wanted to convert Crazy Sue from the Amiga on the Commodore 64. We were quite young, and he gave us a contract to sign. He said, just sign it. And this we were living in Germany, but he wanted to sign us the contract there and then in Venlo, which had pretty tough restrictions in there, saying, if you don't finish by this date, there's a penalty fee, which was quite high. So, wow. We were quite young, and the money he was paying for the final product was, ridiculously low. So we felt under a lot of pressure. And when it comes to pressure and it feels like work, that's when you think, should I do it? Is it really worth the effort? And that's where I try to keep all the scene business of fun business on that level. With Crazy Sue, that was actually quite funny. So we came back from Venlo, and the next day we started working on the game. And my friend, he was always quite fast in coding, and he did a full graphics vertical horizontal scroller. And I started working on the music and graphics. So, and we overlapped a multicolor sprite with a high-res sprite. It looked actually quite cool. So we actually tried, can we make it work or not? So we just wanted to spend a little time on this just to figure out if it's worth the effort. So anyway, we worked on the whole day, and back saving. Who saves? Who does backups during the work? You don't do that. So my mom. So after, I think we started like 10 o'clock in the morning, and 6 o'clock at night, my mom called me and my friend over, said, "Hey guys, dinner's ready." So we went out for dinner, and another friend who was my neighbor, he came over and he said, "I need to show you this new demo," or whatever he had on the Commodore 64. I said, "Yeah, go into my bedroom." That was always too small for people. He turned off my friend's computer where he was coding all day, we came back from dinner, and they said, "Look at this! Isn't it cool?" He said, "Did you save what I did before?" I said, "No, just turn it off." So he lost. He was so pissed off. He lost the whole day of work, which was really. He got there for 1 day work just to see if the basic idea works. He got quite far, and after that, it's not meant to be. We just said, "Nah, let's not do that." But I still have the music that I started was called Level 1. That was a rough idea for Crazy Sue, and that would have ended up in Crazy Sue.
That's a sad story. So a game didn't happen to be just because of this one incident.
Yeah, and but is his fault? Probably not. Should he have saved in between? Yes. Did we save? No.
Well, how many people do you know losing his data nowadays because they didn't do
That's
backup?
right. Yeah. I mean, I've Google Drive, so everything syncs these days. You still lose data, but if you're cloud-based and backup systems are cloud-based, you're fairly all right. You always have a previous version that you call back to. So.
Interesting stories. Very nice to hear about that. So in the end, you remembered a lot more than you thought you would.
Yeah, probably, yes. How long is that? Oh my God, yeah, we're an hour and a half. There's probably a lot more stories. I don't know, like scene-wise, and I wouldn't remember. Other people would remember. I would have no idea.
But finally, we get the whole picture. From your C64 time to the pre-smartphone era.
Yeah, pre-smartphone, then Game Boy. Yeah. I would like to know the website where you got stuff from.
Well, so what I found about your bio, that was from Last.fm.
Oh, yeah.
And your scene stuff, obviously from CSDB, Commodore database.
Yeah.
Then Remix 64, already. And feedback about your work I got from Reddit.
Oh, wow.
And your other stuff comes from Moby Games.
Yeah. I don't think that's complete though. I think Moby Games, that's where I found myself. That's pretty incomplete.
Only one entry. The same with the Japanese video game database, VGMPF. Also just Das Geheimnis der Happy Hippo Insel.
All right.
And then finally your LinkedIn profile, of course.
Yeah, right. There you go. Oh my God, I should be credited for so many things and bad things as well. for example, so my friend Daniel, who also wrote part on the Happy Hippo game, he did the conversion for the PlayStation 1 Hellboy game. And, they needed a font. And I said, oh, yeah, I can do something. And I created the font for the game. And the Hellboy game was rated the probably worst PlayStation game ever. So, there's things to remember, good and bad things.
Well, who would think that the Kinder Surprise game would be your most known work?
It's funny, but look, I would have never thought so. I literally thought, it's a game. After 2 years, no one cares, and then that the people still listen to it. I don't know, up to now, it's crazy. I mean, there's so many other things that are more scene related, and some other projects, the Far West game, but for example, Far West, not many people know of. It's like
It's interesting because many people that I asked tell me about it. It's past. I don't want to even remember that stuff or talk about it.
I'm a bit like that.
Really?
A bit like that. Oh my God. For example, I remember we went to a copy party in Luxembourg somewhere, And oh my God, I swear there was all these geeks, and I swear everyone was drunk.
That's still the case nowadays on demoscene parties. No difference there.
There you go. And you know, I was always the shy one. It's like, oh, really, do I need to be here? And you know, I never felt comfortable. And there's all these big personalities also. Everyone thinks they're a superstar, and you know to me it was always a bit. Too much hard work. It's like, who are you? They're talking to me. So especially you know, back in the day, that you had your heroes, big demo groups. I remember TriStar Red Sector had all their college jackets on with TriStar Red Sector embroidered, and that was so intimidating. Like, oh my God, look at these guys. They're serious about it.
And if you look at the case nowadays, there's only basically Triad around.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, and I mean the other groups are mostly not very active anymore. But Triad, which is an old group from Sweden from '86, they actually made the jump from the cracking golden times to the demoscene golden times, and that is why they are still around. But many of those, elite sceners are not around anymore, not active anymore. But Triad was always a prime example of holding on.
I went on the website. They have tons of tools, which is quite amazing. So they're all non-cracking tools. They're just development or whatever tools, and I thought that's quite cool.
You're also lucky to have done this stuff at a time where the knowledge was already there. I remember I had an interview with Chris Crick, who was a sound manager of Epix, and he told me they had no ideas in the 80s that there was an NTSC and PAL and a difference in the music speed. They simply didn't know.
Well, yeah. And knowledge back then, all you had was a manual from the manufacturer, and that's it. Everything else, you had to know someone who tells you something different that you don't know, or read magazines, and hope that magazine that you pick up has information in there that you don't know or gain something from. But everything was word to mouth back then. I remember when I did Happy Hippo and Ottifanten, the very first draft I did, and so I lived in Düsseldorf. We went to Daniel picked me up, and we drove to Würzburg, where Crystal Cast 3000 is. I had my cartridge with the first version of the music, so I gave it to someone, and he put it in his Gameboy, and I got a shock. It sounded completely different and off. I said, what's happened? So I took the cartridge back, put it in my Gameboy, and it was fine. I thought, holy crap, what's going on? So I put it back in his, and it was stuffed again. So long story short, what happened, it was two versions of the Gameboy with revisioned hardware. If I wouldn't have tested it on his device, it would have been released with old Game Boys would playing the music completely wrong.
I didn't even know that. Okay, interesting.
So, and my bug was there's a certain order you have to write the registers, and I changed it around, and suddenly it worked on both. But I only had my Game Boy, I didn't have the other one, so I had to send it back, say, hey, burn this on your cartridge and test it for me. And luckily it worked. But that comes back to what you said. You have to know someone else to tell you something that you don't know, or try it out, because pre-internet. I mean, internet was around, but you didn't find much information about anything, super specific. Maybe if you were lucky, but it was hit and miss. Preferably, you would know someone who were in that topic that you were looking for. But other than that, you just have to try.
I mean, there are even prime examples where the manufacturer didn't care. I mean, for example, the first version that was never released outside. The first version of the Super Game Boy actually had a few percentage different timing. so the games would run
Oh my
a little
God.
bit
Faster.
slower,
Right.
and so there were some games that would crash. And actually, for the Japanese market, Nintendo released a second version of the Super Game Boy, but that was never done outside of Japan. So,
Right.
so
Wow. So the same game would run faster or slower on
yeah,
the
but the difference is just like 3% or something. So
right.
it's really really slow, but it's fast enough, or how to say, important enough that some games simply crash that rely a lot on timing.
Right. Yeah. I'm not surprised, especially with hardware. Everything is synchronized, needs to work hand in hand, and then if it doesn't, then yeah, good luck.
So I wonder how those hardware was developed at Nintendo. Was it like, oh, we know the timing is a bit off, but who cares? You know, it's good enough, you know.
Saying that, they probably had only a couple games or tools to test the device, and yeah, that's passing. It's ready to go. Who knows? Who knows? Still up to this date, I'm wondering if I saw there's a FPGA C64. Will it do all the C64 glitches that exist on the Commodore 64, like FLI, any sprite multiplexer tricks, and does it all do these things? I'm wondering how close is it to the hardware? Does it even do the 16-bit sample emulation trick? Does it do all that?
Yeah, I mean, I did once an interview with Bill Hurt, who was the lead engineer of the 128. And he said that was one of the biggest problems. They fixed problems of the Z64 in the 128 Z64 mode, and they had to redo and undo the fixes because certain cartridges and games would stop working.
Wow.
So that is why the Z64 mode still has all the bugs of the original Z64. They couldn't fix it without breaking some of the library of software that was running back then.
Just to stay compatible. Yeah. It's crazy. I saw the assembly code of Microsoft Visual Basic with a Easter egg. When you type a certain poke command, it puts out things, and the code. I'm still not sure if I have to look at it again. But when I looked at it last time, a couple of years ago, I was like, I have no idea what's happening here. It just looks like random garbage code. That's so clever. And finding bugs is hard, but especially in assembly, it takes forever. Some bugs. That's probably something. If I would work on any new projects on retro stuff and have to do assembly, it probably would be assembly. I know it's so super time consuming.
Because to make sure that it's working on all the clones and stuff.
Well, probably is I don't even know. Do all the demos work on every single version? I mean, I don't know if they even do. To work in how accurate is Vice, for example? I don't know.
Well, it's to this day it's told to be the most accurate emulator. So
right, yeah, it's impressive. Yeah,
I mean, if you look around, there are not much alternatives anymore. Especially the Amiga scene has a lot of copyright issues with Amiga OS and stuff, and there's a lot of legal battle on it.
Still going.
Yeah, still going on.
Clearly, someone has commercial mind for that, because how much money does anyone make these days with Commodore 64 software? I saw just today on Gumtree here, someone sells the cartridge Wizard of War for the Commodore 64 for $110. What? Shouldn't be more than what, $20 to $30 or whatever it is, or just download it free from the net.
Yeah, but as a collector,
As a collector, that's right.
As a collector, that's a problem, you know.
Yeah.
Interesting. So we covered a lot today. Thanks for taking the time.
That's all right. Thanks for having me.
Great.
And thanks for being persistent in that as well. that you didn't give up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then have a good night. See you then. Bye bye.
Have a great day. See ya. Bye bye.